Hey listeners, Mallory Wilsey here, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network. I get the privilege of working alongside all of our creators at Enrollify, but I wanted to take just a quick moment to tell you about why I love the Talking Tactics podcast hosted by Diana Kibbolds. Every other Tuesday, Day drops a new episode where she focuses on a single tactic that moved the needle on any enrollment metric, from inquiries and booth visitors to apps completed and deposits, even registrations, you name it. The catch? The tactic had to be done with limited resources, either by a single person or a small but mighty team, or limited time, or maybe without a lot of money. The podcast format is fun and engaging, and it's just different from the more traditional 60-minute interview style shows. If you work in enrollment management or marketing, be sure to give Day's show a listen. You can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Talking Tactics wherever you get your podcasts.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
In the dynamic world of higher education, it is easy for the daily grind to overshadow the core mission, serving students. Welcome to Finding Your Why, the Pulse Check series that reignites your passion for higher education. Join us as we chat with inspiring leaders who have found the purpose amidst the challenges of academia. Whether new to the field or a seasoned pro, this series offers valuable insights and practical advice to help you reconnect with your mission and thrive in your higher ed journey. Tune in and reignite your passion for making a lasting impact on students' lives. Hi, Carrie. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so thrilled to have you on the inaugural mini-series episode of Finding Your Why. And I can't think of a better person to kick this off with. We have been friends. We have been faculty for CASE. So in that capacity, we work together. We are in many groups together. So thank you for being part of this show.
Kin, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to tell a little bit about my why and why this means so much, and excited to be part of the conversation.
Amazing. And, Enrollify listeners obviously know you pretty well, but tell us about your why and tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so I would say higher education a little bit. I have always known that that's part of my story. And so I'll kind of start at the very beginning of that and walk you through it. But it very much has had a transformational impact on me and who I am as a person and a professional. So my grandfather came of age in the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. And so he very much talked about, and I remember hearing it growing up, that at the end of 7th grade, when he came home from school at the end of the year, his parents sat him down and said, you're the oldest male in the family, and we're in the middle of this really sad depression, and we need you to stay at home and work on the farm to make sure that your brothers and sisters have food on the table and that they had a home. And so he, had to drop out of school at 7th grade. And I think it really fundamentally affected who he was. I remember going as a little girl to, visit my grandparents, and he always worked 2 jobs. And I also remember him talking about, as he was in the middle of, seeing me do homework or whatever, and I was struggling and chemistry was hard for me. Remember him making comments like he wasn't smart enough to even ever get to do chemistry. And so it really fundamentally affected who he was. But he did work 2 jobs, and his whole goal was that he really wanted to see my dad and my uncle graduate from high school. That was his sole objective, is to let them be able to finish something he didn't have the opportunity. So, every night he would get off about 5, would get home about 5:30. They would quickly have a dinner, and by 6:30 or 7, he was going to his second job, where he worked sometimes till 10 or 11 at night to be able to help his family financially. And so I joke that my dad and my uncle understood the assignment because they both graduated high school.
Yay.
And then I know. And then they both went to a community college for 2 years locally, and then transferred to a 4-year university. And then they both graduated from that university. So they were both, those first generation college students that we talk
love
about.
that.
But then they both got their masters. They both
Stop.
got their I'm not, yeah. Oh, yeah. They both got their doctorates.
Wow.
They both became and retired university professors.
Oh, wow. It's in your blood, Carrie.
Right. So it really, really is, and I just remember thinking of my childhood and kind of juxtaposing that onto my dad's. And I didn't have so many of the worries as a child that he did, when I needed braces or when I wanted to play an instrument or any of those things, because of this transformative educational experience he had, we were able to do those things. And so I very much am drawn to kind of that space because of that story and seeing that kind of play out in my own family dynamic. And my dad's passed away now, but before he passed, he kept telling me that one day I was going to get my doctorate, that he just knew that was in my cards. And I kept telling him, no, Dad, that's not going to be the case. And he presented my bachelor's and my master's to me. And so when I got my doctorate, I actually wore his gown.
Oh, that is so special. That's giving me the chills right now. I love that. I know I've known you, but I never knew this side of your story.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad we're getting to do this because I'm learning something new here as well. Not only did they understand the assignment, they went above and beyond. They were like, I want extra credit, right?
Right. They were the A+ student for sure. And I bet you make a good point too, though. They did both do that, but their journeys looked very different. My dad was in rehabilitation science. My uncle was in accounting. They both had different talents and different skill sets and things that they were really good at and passionate about. But I think they both really understood this value of education and why it was so important. And I think that's kind of the golden jewel that I take away from it all is, we all have different experiences, different things we're drawn to, but there's this fundamental through line in that story of education. And so, whatever that talent or whatever that skill is, I think we can all find ways that education makes us better.
Love that. So your journey is also a little bit different, right? Yours is more in the marketing and communication. So listeners who don't know, which again, they probably do, but you're the CMO at University of Arkansas Little Rock. So teaching was in their journey and in their cards. Doctorate was in everybody's cards. So how did you get onto the administration side as opposed to the teaching and faculty side?
Yeah, that's a really good question. This is actually a little bit of a second career. When I first graduated, I wanted to do television. And so I worked at a TV station for a few years and just always felt that longing back to the university. And so I got my master's. And after finishing that, I was hired to be the assistant director of new media. And nobody knew what new media meant. In fact, in my final interview, when I visited with the president of the university, he told me when I asked what did new media mean to him, the answer was, well, I don't know. That's what I need you to find out and to really explore and champion. So none of us really knew what this meant.
It was probably the buzzword then.
Right. Exactly. But I really kind of was drawn into that. And I did some adjunct teaching, but I really found that I enjoyed my place in the administrative side. Like I love being able to be part of something that could really reach all students and not just that group of students that I had in a class. And so that's really how I was drawn into that space. And then over time have had the chance to advance and to grow in the profession.
I love that. And so, that's something, not your story, but stories like yours have really been a catalyst for many of us who got into higher ed, whether it's our own transformative education or being first generation students ourselves and wanting to kind of continue down that path, or seeing somebody else go through that and find themselves just having a better life, however we define that. But, as life goes on and as, the day to day goes on, sometimes it becomes hard to kind of remember why we started, and therefore the series, right? The Finding Your Why. It's not just finding your why, but remembering your why. And So what
Yes.
inspires you or who inspires you to keep that front and center?
Yeah, I think for me, it's really our students and the work. So again, finding your why is that I'm drawn to those institutions that access is really important. And so right at 51% of our students of our freshman class year were Pell eligible. So they had that demonstrated financial need. Maybe the deck has been stacked against them in one way or the other. And so that to me is kind of what helps me, is remembering that all the things that I'm doing are try to make sure that those students have access and that we're leaving things maybe a bit better than we found them.
Yeah. And boy, last year was not the best year for students who had need with all the FAFSA issues and such. But here we are, we've made it on the other side. And hopefully the students who were looking for assistance have received assistance and are pursuing college despite challenging circumstances. So, our daily grind, especially in marketing, can feel like, a little bit disconnected from students, even though you talked about how students and Pell eligible students really drive what you do and why you do what you do. But, every day there's something new, something different that we are trying to address, solve, but through marketing and through communications. And in our field, unlike what I would say student affairs, perhaps, or academic affairs, where you might be either a faculty member or you might be in student life or you might be a mental health counselor, we don't have that level of interaction on a day-to-day basis. And especially as leaders, as we get into the administration, I think that connection sometimes feels like it's going further and further away. So how does that really affect what you do every day? And then how do you inspire your teams to kind of remember why we are here in the first place, when really a lot of times it's about like, oh, let's launch this campaign, or let's look at our advancement giving day options and see how we might want to do something differently there. Talk to me a little bit about the thought process you have on your own for yourself, but also for your team.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely 100% right that like it is hard. This is hard work, and there are days that it's really hard, and there's a lot asked on us. So, a couple of things. One, I try to always take a deep breath and just pause for a minute. But then I also try to do some things that kind of like help keep us student centered. So for me, one of those is I love to walk around campus. So I try every couple of days to go for a 10, 15-minute walk. A, that helps me have a little bit of a brain break. But B, it's just fun to see our students hanging out, walking around, seeing how they're exploring campus. I also go eat in the cafeteria at least about once a week, because I feel like you get a real sense of your campus and your culture in the cafeteria.
Absolutely.
And I think it's good to kind of see our students and see where they are. Sometimes I have the pizza, sometimes I have the salad, but I should have more of the salads, but that's okay.
No judgment.
Thank you, because the pizza's really good. But then, I also think it's really important that as we're doing some of this work, that we invite students into that space. So we have just at UA Little Rock ripped up the entire north to south artery of campus.
Wow.
And so we've had about a year and a half of construction fences, and we have pulled the fences back. We will be finishing the construction in early August. And so we are in conversations of how do we dedicate this and what does this look like? And one of the things that I'm really excited about is we have some student representatives on that committee. And so at several of the moments, we paused and said, as a student, what would be valuable in this? Or as a student, we're talking about this event at this time. Are you likely to come? What is your kind of experience? And there were several times that the rest of us kind of went, I wouldn't have thought of it from that perspective. So I think building those interactions that you can engage with students in meaningful ways helps remind you of those special initiatives that you're doing and the why, but it also helps make sure that what you're doing is serving the audience that we're really here to support.
Yeah, I was going to say, everything we do is so audience centric that if we did not have that interaction with them and their and understanding of them, on an ongoing basis, really our work would not be effective. So even if it's not directly solving something that they have an issue with, where they go to somebody or their advisor or the career counselor, but it is still talking to them and listening to them and understanding them for what it is that we do. I think that I agree that keeps me at least pretty centered with what I'm here to do.
Hey there, it's Mallory, Chief Strategist of Enrollify. Higher ed is facing a leadership crisis. The demands on today's college and university leaders are skyrocketing, and talent is leaving the industry at an unprecedented rate. New leaders like you are emerging, but no one is getting the proper training to be successful. Well, Enrollify is here to change that. Our new course, Lessons in Leadership, taught by Dr. Carrie Phillips, will prepare you to be a confident, empathetic, and effective leader. From systems thinking to adaptive leadership, building culture to handling difficult decisions, this comprehensive online course is perfect for new and aspiring leaders. Don't wait. The course starts September 9th, and for a lucky group of 26 students, we have the option to add interactive sessions with Dr. Phillips for personalized guidance. Visit enrollify.org to learn more.
And so, you obviously oversee a team as well. And the team, talk to me a little bit about what does your team look like? And then how do you ensure that they feel like they are working at a mission-driven organization and a mission-driven department? Again, talking about marketing and communications or enrollment or any of these other areas that are really revenue driving areas, if you will. Our eyes can sometimes often be on the outside, the external world, if you will. How do they kind of connect with the internal?
Yeah, so I lead a team of 12 and we are central MarComm. So we work with everybody across campus. 1 minute we're working with math, the next minute we're engaging with history, the next minute it's alumni, the next minute it's community, and then after that it's enrollment and athletics. So we really and truly work with everybody. And so I try to make sure that as we talk about our teams, that we're having regular conversations about the mission. We're talking every week about what is the strategic plan. Our marketing and communications team has a plan that builds up into the strategic plan. So we're regularly talking about it. I also try to bring folks in. We had a retreat about 2 weeks ago, and we brought in a member from one of the other divisions on campus to have them kind of help talk through that. We had a team that works with that individual very closely, but not everybody around the table at our team worked with that person. And so help us all understand. But I think the other part of it too is kind of going back to what we said about engaging students. So one of the things that we try to do in our staff meetings is bring our student workers to those meetings as their schedules allow, because they have such real, authentic insights. And so, it gives us the opportunity to kind of teach them about how you sometimes hear things as a MarComm professional and you have to learn what you can and can't speak to outside of that space. But it also really gives them something that they can add to in terms of getting to pitch ideas, getting to be part of dialogue, getting to be part of discussion. And so those are learning opportunities, but we also learn as much from the students as they learn from that process. So I try to do that. And I think the final thing is really about goal setting. So, we set every year 3 goals per person within our team. And 2 of those are directly aligned to that strategic plan. So we've mapped out in that plan, what are the objectives we're going to accomplish this year? Who on our team is the champion for those objectives? And so then we align the goals to that. But then the other is that personal goal. And so maybe that personal goal is something that is tangentially related, that it's going to help the institution as a whole, but it may not be that thing that you do every single day. And so I think giving people that flexibility to kind of set what that other thing is that they want to learn really gives them energy to want to continue to grow their skill set. Because I think that's part of our work as marketing and communications professionals, is that we have to always be learning. And so if we're learning about the students we serve, we're learning about the tools available, that can look a lot of different ways. And so we can be flexible to keep people energized around the work.
I love that. And yeah, all great practical advice on just keeping that connection to the strategic plan and inviting students into the conversations more. Student workers, I think, is definitely an untapped opportunity. I mean, maybe not so in nowadays. I feel like, there are more and more, at least social media champions and student workers that we have found, and more social media teams are relying on students. But I do think there's opportunity to use them even broader than social and really just tap into their expertise of that subject and that topic, but also their own experience.
Absolutely. And, they inadvertently become a great focus group of, insights, and sometimes they speak the truth. And, we talk a lot about speaking truth to power, that's our job sometimes, to be the person that raises our hand with the dissenting opinion on something. And our students do the same with us. And so, to me, that's a real moment when that they feel comfortable and they feel like their voice matters, is when they're willing to raise their hand and say, that wouldn't work for me, and here's why.
No, I agree. Absolutely agree. I mean, we are here to not just promote our institutions, but we are here to be authentic storytellers and identify all the ways in which we can contribute to the growth of our institutions. Well, so just shifting gears a little broader. So, institutions right now, there's a lot of pressure on faculty and staff. We touched on that a little bit, how it's hard, it's just generally day to day can be hard, but higher ed right now feels heavy wherever you look. And so what do you think institutions can do better? And, we don't have to reflect on one particular institution, but just generally, as you have seen higher ed from where you sit in all the volunteer roles that you hold with Case and others, with me, but some on your own as well. But what can institutions do to really better support staff and faculty in keeping that flame going?
Yeah, what a great question. And, as I think about it, I think one piece is really investing in faculty and in staff, particularly around leadership. No one teaches you how to be a good leader. Typically what happens is you're good at your job, and so you end up in a leadership role. And sometimes those skills don't align. So for example, if you were a fundraiser, fundraisers are usually persistent. They don't take no for an answer. They can be strong-willed. And so then all of a sudden that person's a leader, and being persistent, not taking no for an answer, and strong-willed may not be the best skills to be the leader of a team. And so we have to equip people for that challenge and those opportunities. And I think we have to build that pipeline internally, especially as more and more of our senior leaders are retiring. So I've been at a couple of institutions, and UA Little Rock is actually doing this right now, is really looking at a leadership institute on campus and how to, build that leadership bandwidth within our campus, because nobody ever teaches you that. So I think that's a key place that we have to be better at to kind of help support that next generation, is really looking at leadership. I think another piece is collaborating and partnering with human resources. We bring in all of these new faculty and new staff every year. And so I think, it's incumbent on us as the MarComm folks to reach out and to say, how can we partner in that whether that's an orientation process, that's a retreat afterwards, having that conversation and figuring out how we explain what it means to be part of our campus. I think for UA Little Rock, as having such a large first generation population, it's really important to explain to our new faculty and new students what that means and what are the challenges of that, so that they understand how we need them to really help support our students so that our students are successful. So, having those kind of conversations on the front end. And then I think the other thing that we don't always do the greatest of jobs at is internal communication. There are so many things going out that sometimes it's a deluge of emails, or, things get siloed off and the areas don't talk to one another. So I think it's the university saying, how can we get around this? And I think it's an aspirational thing that you never get there, but how do we make strides so that the people know what's going on and they have the important resources. And I think that's important for our students too, because, especially as we hit the enrollment cliff and there are fewer students, retention is going to matter even more than it already does. And if you don't feel connected to a place, are you likely to stay there? And so I think that's where internal communication can help us in that space.
Yeah, all great points. I agree wholeheartedly. I think there is that piece of just, okay, this is that sense of belonging where we talk about that with students so much, right? We like, okay, when a student knows they walk on campus, they just know that this is the place they're going to be at, or they know that this is not going to work for them. Like just that fit factor, which is so emotional. It's very hard to even articulate it. But I think if we apply something like that on almost on a similar level for faculty and staff who work here, that almost that intangible component of just that feeling of belonging and feeling like, okay, this is where I'm meant to be. I think that would be so powerful.
And you're absolutely right. They have that sense of belonging and sense of connection to the institution. How much more are they going to be able and want to support our students to make sure our students have what they need? So it really does have that kind of full circle moment.
Yeah. Well, looking ahead, higher ed is here to stay. I strongly believe that. It may look different. We may have different permutation combinations of what we categorize as institutions or education models and such, but it's here to stay. But what do you envision is the future of our industry in terms of its mission-driven purpose?
I think our work is going to shift. When we think about marketing in particular, there's product, price, promotion, and place. And so I think those all have value, but I think we're going to really start to talk more about the whole experience. And I think that's a place that we as marketing leaders really can be in the driver's seat, because we're through, working with that math department, that history department, all those different campus partners, we sometimes see the broken experience moments, and we have the gravitas to get those people into a conversation together to help make that better. So I think the future is that's going to be more important. And so I think it's really going to be up to us MarComm leaders. I think sometimes we want permission to do that, and we feel like we need someone to say, hey, you MarComm in the back, it's okay to do that. And I think the successful places are going to be the folks that see those challenges and start building those collaborative opportunities to fix that. And sometimes that doesn't mean waiting for permission. It's seeing a need and responding to make sure the experience is good for students. And I think the other part of the conversation, or at least for UA Little Rock, is affordability. We know college is expensive, and we know this year the FAFSA has had some challenges. But what are things that we can be doing to make sure that we're finding creative ways to keep college affordable for our students? Because when, we have a great workforce that's an educated workforce, it helps our town, it helps our communities. I think it's going to be really important that we find ways to talk about affordability and the opportunities that our universities provide for our constituents and for our students and for our community.
Absolutely. I think the perception of college and education right now is largely in the context of cost and value. And the more we can articulate affordability, I think the better aligned our value propositions would be with what students and families need, because we are here to, we both don't work at any elite institution. And I'm guessing majority of our listeners do not work at highly selective institutions. And so that access and opportunity piece continues to be at the forefront if we really are trying to stay true to our mission of providing education for all.
Absolutely. I think it's affordability. And I think the back caveat of that we can't lose is also student success, because it's not just making it affordable, but it's making sure they have the tools they need to be successful.
Couldn't agree more. Well, I couldn't end on a better note than this. So I'm going to call it a wrap. But this was so insightful, Carrie. I knew it would be, but thank you so much for spending time with me today. And for our listeners, where can they connect with you on this topic?
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Carrie H. Phillips, and then my website, andcarrieon.com, and then talking lots more on Enrollify about leadership as well.
There you go. You have it. Carrie's everywhere, and I don't know how she does it, but she does it masterfully. That's for sure. Thank you, Carrie, once again.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoy the conversation.
This Pulse Check mini-series has been brought to you by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Join, find a corner where the big boys play.